Hello and welcome to the Inside Knowledge podcast for people with IBS. I'm Anna Mapson. Today's episode is all about how your weight might be influencing your digestive symptoms. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is I've got a blog post on my website which is about how being overweight doesn't cause IBS symptoms. And this week I had a comment on my website and luckily I screen my comments and I do not allow people to publish them without me authorizing them. And I'm just going to read this to you on this website article, which is basically explaining the science behind being overweight doesn't cause IBS and reducing your weight doesn't necessarily solve your IBS. That's the message of my article. But the comment of this person, and surprisingly angry, and I'm sorry if this is offensive to anybody, what I'm going to read out. This is obviously nothing that I would say, and I have not approved their comment. I've gone straight in the bin. But what they said is, I can't believe this is a search option on Google. It's probably paid for. It's definitely not. But this article is so wrong. There are strong ties from obesity and developing gastrointestinal disorders. Just admit being fat causes a lot more issues than so-and-so made fun of me. And that made me feel really angry, and I'm doing a whole podcast about it now, because that attitude is, it's just rude. There's so much anger. Anyway, what I want to do today, I try and keep my episodes to around 20 minutes, so I will try and keep this brief. And firstly, I'm just going to reference a few other podcasts that I have done. If you want to get more into the detail of these two topics, there's episode 50, which is about how to gain weight when you're underweight. Then episode 38 and 39, which are about how to lose weight with IBS, and also the challenges around changing your diets when you are struggling with digestive conditions, but you also, are trying to follow all of the dietary advice, like eat more vegetables, eat more fiber, eat whole grains. But those are the things that set off your symptoms, like how you're going to go about it. So that is where this episode has come from. And now what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how a high BMI, and if you've got a larger body, that might be contributing to your symptoms. I'm also going to talk a bit about how being in a very small body may be contributing to your digestive symptoms. And because I have written about a lot of this on my website, I will link to a few blog posts in the show notes as well. And if you want to go and read the references, get into the detail of this yourself, you're more than welcome to. This is all backed up by evidence. I am not making this up. And I want to explain the nuance. All right, you can drag out sensationalist headlines from most studies, but what you need to do is understand what they were looking at, what they were testing. Does it fit with the bigger body of evidence? Like, we have to look at science overall. You can't just pick out one study that fits your particular point of view and then try and create a narrative around that. And I think that is what is happening a lot on social media. And I just want to return to like a good overview for people out there who get bamboozled with all this information. So let's start off with bigger body weight, and BMI is not always a good metric to measure weight, but it is what's used in research and it's the best thing we have. So it's a link to your size of your height and the weight of your body, and then normally over 30 BMI is considered obese. So is there a link between being overweight and having IBS? What we know is that IBS is more common in people in a bigger body. All right, so this is associations between people in a bigger body size with the risk of developing digestive conditions. So around 30% of people classed as obese typically have IBS. And then about 30% of people with IBS are classed as obese. So it works both ways. But what we don't have is really clear evidence saying this is the mechanism by which it happens and this is how it happens. There are definitely some associations between specific symptoms and a larger body size. For example, reflux. So obesity is associated with opening that sphincter at the top of your stomach, which could allow stomach acid back up into the esophagus. Now, that might be due to increased pressure in the abdomen, like if there's just more fat sitting around the belly. this could potentially be pushing up and increase the pressure in the same way that when you have a lot of gas in your body, it's increasing the pressure and pushing upwards. And that is something we see quite often with SIBO. The same if you're chronically constipated. We know that having really bad chronic constipation can affect the digestion in the top half. It can increase the risk of reflux. And what I mean by reflux is heartburn, burning in your chest. It could be regurgitation, acid coming back up into your mouth. It can also go into your ears and your nose and your sinuses and really be a part of head symptoms as well. So we also know there's a link between inflammation, and there may be raised inflammatory markers in people who have IBS and a higher body mass index. So with high BMI, particularly if most of that weight is carried around your middle, your tummy and like your whole torso, fat cells there can release higher inflammatory markers. And some links that they've shown is particular raised inflammatory markers called C3 and CRP, which is C-reactive protein. Now, those have been shown to be higher in people who have a bigger BMI and IBS. And the way that that could work is just it's increasing the chances of inflammatory responses in your body. So when you've got a higher amount of fats, especially around your belly, that fat isn't just storing fat, it actually can release little signaling molecules to the rest of the body. And that low level of inflammation has been documented to have effects on heart health. So, for example, like the risk of stroke, higher cholesterol levels, maybe even type 2 diabetes. But we're specifically focusing on the gut and actually just knowing that they've got a low level of inflammation that is raised due to particular fat storage cells. So this is a potential mechanism. Again, I'm not saying it's a cause, but what we do know is it's an association that those inflammatory markers may be a cause of worsening your symptoms. It doesn't necessarily cause the symptoms, but it could increase the intensity. It could increase your nerve sensitivity, for example, like we have a lot of that in IBS, hypersensitivity. And some of that can be down to your inflammation markers being switched on, which then turns on the nervous system, and then that links up to the brain. So there's a plausible mechanism by how this can happen. It's biologically plausible that the immune markers are worsening your symptom severity. There's also potential that the gut barrier may become, we talk about leaky gut and whether that's a real thing. Intestinal permeability is the proper term for it. But there are potential ways where if there's immune activation and low level of inflammation, that's more markers from the gut, whether that's small elements of bacteria, particles of food, could be getting into the tissues around the gut and again increasing your symptoms. So drawing water in, increasing water retention in the body, but also just the other inflammatory cascade that could send out. So it's complicated, it's a complex picture. The other sort of association that we do have between IBS and a higher body weight is around diet, right? So we know that certain foods pass through the body more slowly and potentially could increase your energy intake. So that's high fat, extremely high protein meals with low fiber. Now that is unfortunately like a typical diet in the UK, people who are eating higher levels of saturated fat than the daily recommended intake. Maybe high protein, but it could be protein containing fats. So I'm thinking about burgers, pies, sausages, meats that contain a lot of animal fat, and then also low fiber. So a low level of vegetables and fruits, which are also low calorie. So sometimes people are only able to eat these kinds of foods without triggering their gut, but maybe the high fat, high protein, low fiber combo is actually worsening your digestive symptoms and increasing your energy intake. Okay, so there's a couple of mechanisms between high weight and IBS. Now, taking a step back and going to the opposite end of the weight spectrum, how would being underweight affect your digestion? Well, I have covered this on multiple podcasts already, but just as a little reminder, when you are underweight, And what I mean by that is in a body size that is in a low BMI. So the healthy BMI goes from 18.5 upwards. If your BMI is 17, 16, even 15, that is showing that you have significantly reduced muscle mass. You have a very low body fat. Everything's shrunk. So compared to your height, your body is very small. The reasons why people get to such a low body weight could be because there are hardly any foods that feel safe and you can't eat anything, and your volume of food goes down as the variety goes down, and people tend to lose interest in food and lack of enjoyment in eating anymore. Eating feels difficult and stressful, and therefore you don't want to eat. And that is a lot of people I work with. That is what a lot of people I work with say, that they just wish they could stop eating, and if they could do away with it, they would. There's no enjoyment to it anymore. So let's think about how you get to the point where you are underweight. What has to happen for you to get to that weight? What you are doing is eating less than your body needs all the time. So this will slow down your gut transit time over a long period. Now, what that doesn't mean is that you'll end up constipated, although it can become more common to be constipated. You may still be having diarrhea and be in a low body weight, and I'll explain a bit about that. So depending on your symptoms, people who have a very fast gut transit time and diarrhea may not be absorbing their fats correctly. So a lot of that is done in the small intestine. People who have SIBO may be getting their food going quickly through the small intestine and losing some of that ability to digest fats. That is a possibility. It may be that, again, the types of foods that you're able to eat are very low calorie. The reason it can slow down your gut transit time, including stomach emptying, is because your body is trying to cling on to all the food it gets. Plus, there's just not enough volume coming through. Your gut works when you have enough fiber and enough waste product for it to push through the tubes, all right? It's squeezing them through the tubes. If there's nothing there, it's kind of squeezing, nothing's happening. You've got a higher likelihood of getting slow transit time, hard, pebbly poos, because that is just not moving quick enough. And also what happens is you get slow stomach emptying. So then when you do eat, you feel full very quickly because your stomach effectively shrinks a little bit. You feel very uncomfortable very quickly. And so that can, more severe end of the scale, turn into gastroparesis, which is, a medical slow stomach emptying condition. But it can just be very, very sensitive to small increases in the size of your stomach, which is triggering intense worry and fear, and also then cascading to other problems further down. So everything starts cramping, everything starts feeling painful. So if you've got to the point where your weight has significantly reduced, it is likely that you have not been eating enough protein, enough of key nutrients like maybe zinc, B12, maybe iron, and you could also be low in some of these nutrients that your body needs in able to digest things properly. So it's good to screen for nutrient insufficiencies or deficiencies even. And that will be via a blood test with your doctor. Just get a full blood panel to check whether you have any nutrient deficiencies. And also we need to think about how to increase your calories in a way that feels comfortable. But I wanted to just with this podcast explain that being underweight or being significantly overweight have both got consequences on your digestive symptoms, but do not necessarily cause your IBS. It's not the originating root cause of your issues. And sometimes putting weight on or losing weight will not be the thing that cures your digestive issues, but your body will be healthier when you are roughly at a good, healthy weight that suits you. I think as well, what's really important to think about is not just the weight on the scales with all of these things, it's how you feel. Can you run up and down the stairs without getting out of breath? People who are in a higher and a lower weight body will sometimes really struggle with that. Can you go for a walk every day? Are you able to, get anywhere near that elusive 10,000 steps that we should all be aiming for? Not that that is always actually based on science, but we do know that being more active during the day is helpful. And people who don't have enough energy, or people who are carrying excess weight, will find that difficult. And so it's about getting a healthy weight for your cardiovascular system, for your brain health, for your kidneys and liver. It's not just about your digestive symptoms. So maintaining a good healthy weight, and what I mean by that is not necessarily bound by the BMI restrictions. It's about a healthy weight that allows you to do the stuff you want to do, to be able to get out and run around with the kids, to be able to walk to the shops and carry food home again without feeling completely exhausted. Those are much more important to me than the weight number on the scale. But we do have that BMI as a way to look at the extreme ends of the scale, like to try and get somewhere nearer the middle, because of the health implications that are associated with a bigger and a smaller body. So just to summarize what I am trying to say in this episode, and what I wish I could say to that person who left that comment, is that having a bigger body doesn't necessarily cause IBS, but there are some associations between having a bigger body size, especially if that fat is around the belly. The same applies to people who are underweight. It doesn't necessarily cause your IBS symptoms, but you could be exacerbating it until we're able to, rectify healthy digestion, maintain better muscle mass, those kind of things. And if you are struggling at either end of the weight scale and you're in a real challenge about how to change your diet, think about increasing muscle mass. This is important for all of us. We should all be aiming for a good ratio of muscle mass to non-muscle in our body. And we can do that by training our body, eating a healthy range of proteins that are going to help to build and stimulate muscle growth. But we're not going to be able to change muscle mass just by eating high protein diet. You actually need to train. And in order to do that, you need to be fueling your body to have enough energy, enough of the key nutrients that give you a bit of energy to get up and go, and to go to the gym or to get out on that walk. Like, that is pretty impossible to do if you are exhausted and run down. And I think what I'm trying to challenge with this episode is that somehow your weight, whatever it is your fault. If you all are struggling with a digestive condition, it is very difficult, stuck between your issues with your weight and problems with your digestion, because what you eat affects both. And when you have such severe symptoms that it's restricting your food choices, it's really challenging. So I don't know if that's given people a way forward. I just thought it would maybe be helpful to hear if you're either end of that spectrum. And I guess I just wanted to get something off my chest to whoever that poster was on my website. Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Inside Knowledge podcast. Better digestion for everyone.